growing older and loving life.
In my 60s, I want to try new things. Last week, for the first time in my life, I smoked a bong.
Do you keep a lid on your stress levels as well?
I don't allow stress into my life.
There's an African proverb that says when an old person dies, a library dies with them. The idea of just because they're over 60, putting them in a heap, I just find that really unthinkable.
How do you see your future unfolding?
I'm going to be ageing disgracefully.
Ageing disgracefully is the goal.
Absolutely.
I love riding the bike, the fresh air, the freedom, the exhilaration, cracking on through a mountain pass or in the high country. Every time you get on the bike, it's an adventure. Every day is different and every road is different. To do 100 mile an hour, it's a great way to go out. My name is Phil Whitten and I'm 71. I've been a member of the Ulysses Motorcycle Club for 40 odd years. I think we've got about 45,000 members in Australia. The Ulysses Club motto is to grow old disgracefully.
Look at all these faces around here, they're all disgraceful, all of them.
I'm 69 and I don't feel like I'm 69 because I lead a full life and I'm happy doing what I'm doing and I just feel younger for it.
Riding motorcycle keeps you young and keeps you alive.
I'm 76, still riding the Goldwing. I love it. I don't want to give it up.
Why I like being a member of the Ulysses Club is the friendship, the camaraderie, the interaction with members, the support that we can give each other. The social nights are very, very popular. Barbecues and evenings out with friends. I don't feel my age. Fortunately, I'm still fit and healthy. Life at the moment for me is fun. I'm enjoying it. Very few restrictions. And basically the best I can be at the moment.
Phil, when you were younger, did you imagine your 70s would be like this?
No, not in the least. Anybody 70 at that stage was very old or had passed away.
What does growing older look like to you now?
I think I've had a good life and now we can have even more fun, particularly on the motorbike with the group, and just get on and do it every day is a bonus.
Kelly, you're 50 years old. Have you started thinking about your next chapter?
Yes, I have. I'm planning on buying a motorhome and at the end of this year and trekking off around Australia to do some work. I do have children and grandchildren, but I'm happy to go off and do some stuff for myself now.
You originally had plans to travel with your husband. What happened?
He moved on.
Right.
With a much younger person. It was never really cemented that we would travel together, but it was something that we did talk about.
Did that change your approach to growing older?
Slightly, yes.
In what way?
I guess because his new partner is younger, it made me think, well, I need to get out there and do stuff and be part of life.
Krista, you're a businesswoman, you're a socialite, you're a reality TV star. You're 76. How do you feel about getting older?
Absolutely fabulous. Every day is great.
Was there ever an age or a point where you thought, oh my goodness, I'm getting older?
Yeah, I think for me the hardest part was acknowledge 60. You think, oh gosh, I'm over the hill now. I had it, nobody invites me anymore. But it never happened. We are embraced by a young, fabulous crowd. We party more than a lot of young ones do. And we probably drink even more than they do.
So tell us what life is like for you now.
Life is just good fun. A very good relationship with my husband of 35 years. And I have so many close friends around.
Charles, you and your wife Krista have been together for 35 years. I love looking at how you look at each other still after all that time with so much love. For many of those years you enjoyed an open marriage. How do you approach your relationship at this age?
We believed in tantric love in a way. meaning engaging the whole of your body. So when the time comes, maybe where it's not particularly easy to obtain certain reactions from some of your organs, well, you have plenty of organs to spare. You have a whole body to spare. You're actually extending the potential of sex.
Krista, has this approach to intimacy changed your relationship with Charles?
I think we're actually closer now than we ever have been. And we are very, very good together.
How do people respond to your openness around this topic? Does anyone ever assume that, because you're a certain age, sex isn't an important part of life?
I think so. I think most people are actually giving it up too early.
Charles, you're 87 years old. You're still working every day. How important is that work to you?
It's very important. I just think in terms of the passing of time and asking myself a question all the time. How much time do I really have to finish this painting, to finish this cycle, to do the best work, to keep on improving my work?
Janice, you were a school teacher, counsellor and a psychologist. What happened when you stopped working at 55?
Well, I was devastated, absolutely. And nothing, all my whole life, I was excited about retiring and then there was just nothing.
You started going to the gym. You're 79 years old now. Let's look at how you spend some of your time.
I train in the gym 3 days a week and I'm there for probably 2 hours. Machines for your legs and your shoulders and your arms and pull up with your stomach. I first started weight resistance training in 1999, shortly after I retired. There was a trainer there and he said, I'd like to train you, and I thought, oh, that's fantastic. I trained for 12 months and he said to me at the end of the year, there's a bodybuilding competition. When he suggested it to me, I was scared stiff and I thought, well, I might as well have a go. I was shocked because I won. And I thought, how did that happen? Oh, there I am.
This year, Masters level 60, the one and only Janice Moray. Big round of applause.
I'm crying, but I'm happy, do you know what I mean? I never thought I'd become a bodybuilder. This is my trophy cabinet. I've won 13 world titles, and I started when I was 55, when nobody else over 55 in Australia, in the world, were actually competing.
74 young. 74, ladies and gentlemen.
My plans for competing when I turn 80 later this year is to show older people you can be strong, in shape and excited about life at 80.
Janice, what's it like looking at yourself doing that?
Oh, is that really me?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very proud that I've been able to achieve.
How do people react when they find out you're a bodybuilder?
Well, I'm pretty used to it now, and most people I know that I am a bodybuilder.
What motivated you to take this path?
All my life I've been working to help people live the life they want to live, irrespective of stereotypes and expectations of others, and I've had all different vehicles. So I used bodybuilding for the same thing, to show how you didn't have to become old and weak at an older age.
Nia, you've been tracking baby boomers for the last 25 years. How are Australians approaching getting older?
Well, I think the word disgracefully is absolutely correct. And we used to have a very prescriptive sense of how old people are supposed to live. And fundamentally, they used to fade away. You know, there were certain things they're supposed to wear, things they're supposed to do, how they would behave. And that was the norm, and older people did that. But the baby boomers came through, and like always throughout their life, they said, well, hold on a second, that might have been your way of doing things, but why can't I do any activity? Why can't I wear anything I want? One lady said to me, you know, I'm in my 60s, I want to try new things. Last week, for the first time in my life, I smoked a bong. And there it is, no more rules.
So it's a new beginning rather than an ending.
Indeed, the word retirement is a bit of a terrible word to use. It's not qualified for it because it used to be retirement, you know, and then you'd fade away and die. But now retirement is actually, hold on, there's a whole new stage of life.
What do you think's behind this change in attitude?
Well, there's a few things. Obviously, we're more sprightly, we're more youthful, medicine, all those things. But as a society, we've evolved to say, well, hold on, you don't have to go according to expectations of you. Why should you live like that? And it just didn't suit younger people's image of themselves. And so they're free to do whatever they like. And that, yeah, that'll continue on, obviously.
John, you had initially feared getting older. Why?
Associated really with what Mia said, that you know, you reach the end of this stage of life, and then what?
After running your own business for 3 decades, you decided to go back to university at 57. Why?
I wasn't finished. My children fortuitously were financially independent. My grandchildren really looked for me for fun and laughter. I was absolutely free. And it was liberating to realise that I could make choices and pursue those choices without worrying about the repercussions.
You're now 73.
Yes.
How would you describe this time of your life?
I'm really enjoying this. I'm actually able to pursue that which I choose to, and I do. I spend a lot of time maintaining physical fitness and physical health, and I think that makes a huge difference to the quality of the way I lead my life, and in particular to my ability to do those things that I'm interested in.
What did you study at university?
When I went back to university, I did social work, primarily because most of my adult life had been concentrating on the bottom line. I grew up in a world, as do most small businessmen, whereby one of the primary indices of success is profitability. If you can do some good along the way, you try to, but the basic indice of success is the profitability of your business. And it was time to think in terms not of profitability, but to think in terms of that which I could contribute to others. And that was the area I pursued.
Kelly, you have 3 adult children and 2 grandchildren. Is there an expectation, do you think, that you should maybe travel less and be around for your grandchildren?
I think in some circumstances, yes. But my kids are pretty happy with me and the choices that I'm making. And I plan on bringing home lots of stories to tell my grandkids and my kids. So I think that will be my contribution to their growing up. I'm happy with that.
Nolene, you're also a mother of 3. You have 6 grandchildren. Do you feel any expectation that you should be around for them?
No, not at all. My kids were raised to be very independent and responsible for their own lives. They would never expect me to be a caregiver on a regular basis. They were told from a very early age that when they made me a grandmother, I was likely going to move to the other side of the country. And so they understood.
You told them that?
I told them that.
How old were they when you told them that?
I think I started about 5.
Wow, that's early on.
You've got to get the message across.
You've got to get in there early.
You've got to get in there. So for them it was very normal, but they accepted that and they've never questioned that this is my time. They are fully supportive of that. They also understand that if I need to spend time with them, that I'm always going to be available.
Krista, what do you think about that, this idea of grandparents and grandchildren being around?
I'm thinking slightly different, probably because I don't have children of my own. But I feel sometimes sorry for people, women in my age or much, much younger, in their 50s, when they're going to be very inexpensive babysitters. I think grandparents are great. They are fabulous for kids in small doses.
Nia, what does your research say about this?
For older people overall, grandkids are the pinnacle of their lives. And the main reason for this is whereas the rest of society has discarded people by this age, the grandkids look up treasure, you can teach them things. You feel like you have some kind of influence on someone. As somebody said to me in a discussion I did, grandkids are the reward you get for not shooting your kids when they were teenagers. But the key here is choice.
Right.
And as has been said, kids are working, sometimes 2 full-time jobs. The grandparent is brought in as cheap babysitting, and then it's not fun anymore. That's what they've done for the whole lives, is do the dinners and all these specific things. What they want to do now is have the grandkids over. Do you want some ice cream? Sure. You want to, and then you send them home to have the sugar rush.
Yes.
But it's about how much control they have over when they spend time with the grandkids.
Faith, in your 50s, you went through what we sometimes call a midlife crisis. What was going on for you at the time?
I was running a fashion business for quite a long time, about 14 years, and then the GFC hit and that business fell apart. And at the same time, a relationship that I thought was going to be a marriage fell apart as well. And just all the things that I held dear, all those things that I felt that was my identity, because I didn't have children too. So all those things that I thought were that validated who I was suddenly fell away.
How did you bounce back?
Oh, I spent six months swimming every day, talking to friends, and re-evaluating what was really important, you know, what was left and where was I going to go. I went to uni and I got pursued a degree in counselling and psychotherapy.
Wow.
So that's
your graduation?
Yeah, that's me. So at 54, I graduated as a psychotherapist.
What's life been like for you since then?
I love it. You know, I have my therapeutic practice, which I absolutely love. I started being referred, a lot of women in their 40s and 50s that were really depressed around ageing. I was quite surprised. I mean, coming from a different culture, my culture really reveres ageing. We don't dread it. All the women in my life, we look forward to getting older, you know, because you're much wiser, you're more confident. So when I was seeing these women in my private practice that were really struggling with ageing, it just really made me just think. And so I started this movement, like I said, called Silver Sirens, and I wanted to create a platform where women could come together and celebrate the ageing process.
Louise, you had 35 years' experience in communications when you applied for a job in your 50s. What happened?
I registered with a couple of executive recruiters, and the first one I went to was a director of one of the top executive recruitment firms in the country who was probably in her 40s. And the treatment I had was absolutely appalling. There was no way she was going to help me. She gave me back my CV full of red markings, like a school project. She asked me what sort of job I might want, and when I told her, she recoiled from me and said, "Oh, no, you can't have a job like that. You're very mid-tier." So I said, "Thank you for your time," still being polite. And I got up and left. And as I walked into the foyer, she followed me into the foyer of the building. And my back was to her. And she said, "Oh, can I give you a few other tips?" And I said, "Oh, yes, please do." "What now?" And she said, "Your perfume's too strong, your lipstick's too bright, and you're inappropriately dressed." And my inappropriate dress apparently was my Anthea Crawford dress with no sleeves. And apparently my bingo arms was all too much for some CEO to ever employ me.
Wow, how did you react to that?
I was just furious, because if I'd have been someone who was looking for a job, I'd been a woman coming back from mat leave, or I'd been somebody who really needed a job, that could have destroyed me.
When you had that experience at the recruitment firm, you wrote an opinion piece for the SMH.
I did.
What response did you get from that?
I had probably 250 people contact me. Some of the stories were heartbreaking. I had a woman from Melbourne who was 51, a single mum, 3 kids, who had a PhD. She had applied for 76 jobs and didn't get one single reply. Never mind anything else, nobody replied to her. There were so many stories from so many people with the same theme. They're just treated appallingly.
Why do you think it was difficult to find work?
I think that ageism is alive and well. And I think it's a cultural thing. I think that we really need some sort of incentive for companies to employ people over 50. And something like if you employ someone over 50, you don't pay payroll tax on that person, or some sort of bottom line incentive so it becomes a cultural issue, much the same as racism and sexism is now in the workplace. And I think we desperately need something like that because we have so many people unemployed who want employment over 50.
Chris, you were made redundant in your 50s. What happened to your career after that?
I fell for the old trap of not even thinking about my age and just started writing application after application for a job, pushing things online, working my networks at the same time, and didn't get a single response.
How many jobs did you apply for?
I probably put in over 20.
Why did you think you weren't getting any responses?
Well, I was put straight pretty quickly by somebody much wiser than me that said, don't do that, you're wasting your time. You just need to start working on a portfolio career, start building your own.
Wasting your time because of your age?
Yes, yes, exactly.
So where did that leave you?
Well, it was just a very quick wake-up call that I needed to just work a lot harder on the networks. And luckily for me, I've run into people who shared the same enthusiasm to destroy the ageism barrier. And so I'm now chairman of Silver and Wise, which is an organisation which hopes to value experience for individuals working in Australia.
Natasha, you study attitudes towards ageing. What do you think of Louise and Chris's experiences?
It's not surprising. There's many people that have had similar experiences, 50 years and over, particularly in the workforce. And, ageism is something that is a cultural thing, and it sort of permeates our culture through sort of language, mass media, our social values. And I think, there's been a lot coming out lately in health reports, including the World Health Organization. They had a big survey across 57 countries that showed 1 in every 2 people have moderate to high level of ageist attitudes, and that was across 80,000 people across 57 countries. Australia has quite an ageist culture, but other countries do too.
The Human Rights Commission found that ageism is the most accepted form of prejudice in Australia. Why is that?
I think it speaks to this sort of, it's a little bit not on our radar, but it's slowly becoming more prevalent, and there's some complexity around it. I think, ageing sort of leads to, in our cultural psyche, to the end and to decline. So we want to keep it at a psychological distance. But we also have this kind of binary way of seeing age as young and old, and we tend to put all the good attributes to youth and then the not so great attributes to older. So I think, the best way to combat that is to really see ageing for what it is, which is a lifelong process of different transitions and challenges and ups and downs.
You've also studied different cultural perspectives on ageing. What stands out to you in those studies?
So some of my research that I did was comparing kind of the collectivist cultures with individualist cultures, and Australia is sort of more of an individualist culture, and I compared that with the Philippines. I actually come from both cultures, the Philippines and Australia. And more collectivist cultures that Asian and some Eastern European countries tend to be more intergenerational in their, not just their living, but their day-to-day. And I found in my research that those who were higher on collectivism tended to be more positive in general about attitudes to ageing and their own ageing.
Rudy, you grew up in the Philippines. Does this resonate with you?
Yes, absolutely. When I was growing up, it's very common in the Philippines to have 3 generations in one household, like the children, the grandchildren, and the grandparents.
How do you see Western culture treating ageing?
In Western culture, nursing homes are quite common, and whereas in countries like the Philippines, nursing homes are almost unheard of.
And how did that culture shape your attitude towards growing older?
Well, it did give me a sense of hope, because I saw that when I was a kid, my grandmother was given all this love and respect in the house. So maybe I thought that maybe when I grow old, at her age, I could have the same love and respect myself.
Faith, you describe your mother as a role model for growing older. Why?
Well, in her 50s, I mean, we were all older, we didn't need her so much. So she went back, well, she went to study, she travelled extensively. And, she broke up with my father, she started a new relationship. I just saw my mother blossom. I just saw this most amazing woman come into her own, and I wanted that.
How different do you think is that outlook to what you see here in Australia?
Oh, I think it's really different. Like I said, just having those women in my private practice being quite depressed, like really, really depressed around aging, I found that was really, really sad because that's not what I saw. I've got older sisters, quite a bit older than me too, and the whole family's attitude was like, we just can't wait to be older, because in my culture, the oldest person in the room is the person that everyone wants to be.
When you look up to older people in your culture, what happens when they die?
Well, there's an African proverb that says when an old person dies, a library dies with them.
A library dies with them.
Yeah. So that idea of being around them and minding them and really getting the best out of their wisdom while they're still around. I mean, the idea of just putting someone, because they're over 60, putting them in a heap, I just find that really, unthinkable when there's so much wisdom. So I want to be around them. I want to learn as much as I can from them. They've got so much to offer.
In your work as a psychotherapist, do your clients ever talk to you about the social expectations to look younger?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of them, there's some emotional elements to some of the things they bring, but a lot of it is physical.
Right.
A lot of it is struggling with, should I let my hair grow grey? And if it does, will that impact my my ability to find work? To even if they've divorced, even get into relationships? I'm so frightened of becoming invisible.
Do you feel that way?
Never.
How do you feel?
I think when a lot of the women talk about invisibility, I always kind of say, invisible from who? Certainly not invisible for myself or the people that matter to me. So if I'm invisible to some random men in the street and they're not looking at me, that's a relief in a lot of ways,
And what about greying hair, for example? How do you feel
grey
about
hair?
that?
I count my greys. I can't wait to go grey. That's why I've got grey extensions, because I want to be grey.
Krista, you're very open about undergoing cosmetic procedures. Why do you want to change your appearance?
Well, I don't really want to do it just for the youth. You can never get that back because there's a lot more than just a plastic surgery which they can never give you back. If you do it for a partner, if you do it for the wrong attitude, then you should think about it. But I love it. I love it. I'm all for it.
Kelly, do you feel pressure to look younger?
Pretty much.
Wow.
I've indulged in a bit of Botox. I was supposed to have some bariatric surgery this year. It wasn't just to look younger or to feel younger, it was about my health. I want to feel better in myself, and also, I guess, in society, women are expected to have a particular look about them.
Phil, how about you? Do you ever worry about your appearance?
No, I put the helmet on.
Can't see anything. And Chris, what about you?
Authenticity is actually what's really important. I don't want to be somebody else. I just want to be me. So, no, it's not something that goes through my head at all.
John, do you ever worry about your appearance?
I wouldn't use the word worry or concern. I'm conscious of it, not in terms of wanting to look fashionable, but I want to look presentable to me.
Nia, are the challenges of growing older different for men and women?
Men struggle with it more because their identity was in their workplace. And suddenly they retire one day, the phone doesn't ring anymore, they don't have underlings under them, and they're home. And the wife says, well, where have you been the last 25 years, I don't want you here 24 hours a day now, Women, they adjust though. So it takes a period of adjustment and they find themselves. Women, and I believe women in their 60s and 70s are the happiest women in society, in fact, because they feel like, I've done my job, I've sacrificed, the whole world was about the family, now it's my time. I've got a great relationship with my kids because I'm open with them. I have girlfriends. Men don't have these close friendships that last over the years. And now it's my time to do things.
Growing older in the way you want to and that liberation, Are finances linked to that as well?
Yeah, and of course you have the lucky ones and the unlucky ones, and that's really important because it's all about choice and the choice to travel or pick up hobbies or things. You know, I remember I did a group of people, older people, just living on the pension. You know, that's all they had. And I said, how do you reward yourself? What's the good times? And the lady said, you know, once a fortnight I get my pension, I go to McCafe and I have some raisin toast and a coffee. And you don't have many choices around life when you're in that position. That's the issue I think we face today, and we see that with women especially, because they weren't compensated, they expected to be looked after. And a lot of the impoverished people in this age group are women who've just missed out, didn't have the super. So I think hopefully we're catching up with things by allowing for more things in place, like the superannuation and other areas. But there's no fun growing old on the pension, I can tell you that.
Noeline, at 60, you and your husband travelled the world for 2 years.
Yes.
When you returned home, what happened?
We had had so much fun that even though we'd only been home for 3 months, we were already planning another year away.
Right.
And then my younger brother died unexpectedly. He was 8 years my junior. And that one event seemed to really worry my husband. It seemed to make him consider his own mortality, a midlife crisis, if you will. Some month after my brother had died, I came home to an empty house. My husband had packed up in the middle of the day and just left without warning, without even saying goodbye. After 35 years of marriage, he just vanished.
So you had no idea what had happened?
No idea. I didn't know where he was. I didn't know if he was okay.
How did you process that?
Shock, obviously. I've always been the kind of person who would deal with a crisis and then break down days afterwards. It took me about 5 days before I started to cry, and then I cried non-stop for over 3 weeks, 24/7. I was so heartbroken and so distraught that I could barely speak for nearly 3 months, not even to my own kids.
Where did it leave you in terms of the practical look of your life, your finances?
It left me homeless. At that stage, I was 63 and I didn't have a roof over my head.
For how long?
For the next 9 months. So I had to house sit, couch surf, rent a room, whatever I could do to keep myself safe. When I eventually got into my own place, I had to start from scratch. I did not even own a knife and fork, let alone furniture or linen. At 64, I was sleeping on a blow-up mattress on the floor, singing the Beatles song, "Will You Still Need Me When I'm 64?" I then discovered that I'd been left to deal with all of the joint finances, the debts rather, on my own. So I was trying to start a new life, start a new home, and I was living below the poverty line for another 9 months. I had to close a lot of doors just to survive that period of my life. It was incredibly difficult. But eventually you recalibrate. You change direction, you start again. You only have one life. You've got to grab it with both hands. And I was happy to do that. I will never feel bitter about him leaving because ultimately, as in any relationship, he had the right to do that. And if anything, he actually freed me up to just focus on my own happiness for the rest of my days.
How did you start to rebuild your life? What did you do day to day?
I think for me it was just about stopping and drawing breath. So I would take a house sit that was near a beach and I would just go walk the beach, walk whoever's dogs I was taking care of at the time. It was just about drawing back and shutting down to the absolute basics so that I could gather my thoughts and figure out what my next step was.
What is life like for you now?
My life is extremely full. I'm living my best life. I'm settled, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm having fun, probably too much fun. I can live very frugally. I discovered that the local council runs free yoga classes on the beach. There's a free meditation class. The local club does a $2 Zumba session twice a week. I mean, who's not going to go do that? You know, there's free lessons at the club to go dancing and learn ballroom dancing. I'm lousy at it, by the way, but you've got to be bad at something. There's so many things that I can do that's far more than just having lunch at the club.
How do you see your future unfolding?
I won't put a number on it because, as our friend said, I'm going to be ageing disgracefully.
Ageing disgracefully is the goal.
Absolutely.
Party's over. It's time to call it a day.
My name's Carlotta, I'm 78 years of age and I'm just about to retire and I'm very happy.
It's time to wind up the masquerade.
And now I'm looking forward to just living as Carol. I started out in King's Cross in 1963. One of the highlights of my career was appearing at the Opera House just after it opened. I never thought Lay Girls would open at a place like that. I was the original Priscilla's touring around Australia. You know, and unfortunately I didn't have a pink bus. I had 11 drag queens in a Volkswagen. We did it tough in those days. I just don't want to be one of those people who said, oh, she should have retired years ago. So I'm going out with a bit of a bang.
For once in my life, I have someone who needs me.
Well, Carlotta's going out with a bit of a bang.
For once, unafraid, I can go where life leads me.
I feel fantastic. I remember years ago when I was younger, I thought, oh God, I'm going to hate getting old. But you know what? Every day, it's something different. I'm enjoying old age, actually. I'm not into the Botox thing. What's the point? And I've seen women at my age having facelifts. I won't name the dogs they look like. Retirement to me is going to be glamorous.
Carol, thank you so much for joining us. Carlotta is hanging up her feathers and her sequins. What is next for Carol?
Next for me is just having fun in life, darlings. I get so annoyed with, I see older friends and older people in shopping centres and that, and they look so bored and unsatisfied with life. Look in that mirror, look at those lines on your face. Every line has a fabulous story and a fabulous memory. And you know, we're here for a short time, not a long time. Get off your bums and go and do something, because life is just wonderful and we live in one of the best countries in the world, and it's just I get up in the morning and thank God every morning I'm still here.
What are you enjoying about getting older?
I'm enjoying my friends, actually. My friends, which I never had a lot of time to catch up with, because I've been working since I was 16. I've been on the road since I was 16.
You also have been painting. That passion is starting to pay off for you as well.
I lost a lot of money in the first year, 2020, when COVID came in. And I thought, well, I've got to do something. So I always drew all my life, and I started painting. 6 months down the track, I had an art exhibition. I did something like 60 paintings and sold 41 on the first day. I don't know whether it was because it was by Carlotta, but I just, it's given me another career. So I'm very happy about that too.
So you've got the hobby that you could continue on after you hang up the sequins.
Oh, yes, darling. You know, I'll always do something. I mean, I cook, I sew, I do, you know. The thing with getting older, you know, don't sit on your butt all day and be bored. Get out there, have fun and enjoy life. I do.
Phil, does that attitude strike a chord with you?
Oh, yes, very much so. And I remember seeing Carlotta at Les Girls back in the late 60s. It was a marvellous show.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Carlotta, wow, you've got Phil here, saw you in the late 60s. What was the show like?
Amazing for a 19-year-old sailor.
You've never forgotten it.
Oh, no.
Oh, there were a few sailors.
John,
I bet he went to the bourbon and beef.
Oh, yes. and the Texas Tavern.
John, how about this idea of having hobbies and not sitting on your bum? Does that strike a chord with you?
Very much so. My hobbies are a bit like Phil's. I'm attracted to wheels, so I spend a lot of time with bicycles, motorbikes, motor cars.
Carol, do you have any concerns about getting older?
I'm one of those positive people, you know, like even if I get an ache in the foot, I'm off to the doctor and check on it, which a lot of people don't do. They get aches and pains, they go to the doctors too late. You know, if you stay on top of things, I'm pretty sure that your life will be healthy.
Do you keep a lid on your stress levels as well?
I don't allow stress into my life. I don't allow drama queens in my life. I don't allow whingers into my life. I can't stand whingers. I say get off the planet. I hate whingers. You get up of a morning and if you're healthy, get out there, walk, dance, have fun. Come on.
Chris, do you have any worries about getting older? Does anything concern you?
No, but I'll let you know when I do get older. But fitness is the key to everything in life. I swim every day right through winter, no wetsuit. I ride. I've got two 13-year-old kids. Sorry, kids. You know, it's the key to life. Just keep moving, keep exercising, keep doing the weights. We camp, we hike, we do everything. And my wife's a very keen runner as well. So, look, you know, for me, fitness is the key to youth and longevity.
Charles and Krista, any concerns for you about getting older?
No, we enjoy our life. We enjoyed it for a long time, but I'll agree totally with no whingers, no complainers in your life, you know, and
do it
exercise
every day. Exercise every day.
Yeah.
You have to move all the parts all the time. And lubricate here and there.
Rudy, you're a Zumba instructor and a personal trainer.
Yes.
You're 54 years old.
That's right.
This is what life looks like for you. Rudy, what is your attitude towards ageing?
It's all about having fun, living the best life that you can possibly have.
What does a typical day look like for you? I presume it's busy. I get the sense that it's busy.
Yeah, well, I start usually at 5:30 in the morning training PT clients, and then I would go back, have my breakfast, and then clean the house, and then, you know, feed my dogs and cats and my birds, and then go to the gym around midday. I work with weights, and then I teach mostly in the evenings. I teach Zumba. I have 12 classes a week.
Wow.
So that's 12 hours in a week that I do dance and have fun.
You didn't always have this attitude about your future. What was going on in your late 20s?
I was really overweight. That was the time when I left the Philippines for the first time, and that's me. Like,
that's you there. Wow.
My heaviest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I went to Saudi Arabia to work as a medical scientist, and then I think it's because I was in a very isolated part of Saudi Arabia, and I was so lonely, and and I turned to food as my comfort zone. So and I just kept eating and eating until I just ballooned, and then one day I was really struggling, and I would be breathless to walk up even just 5 flights of stairs. It was a turning point for me because being a medical scientist and working in the lab, I examined my own blood one day, and then to my shock, my blood wasn't red, it was white because of too much fat.
Wow.
And then our pathologist told me, he said, you got to do something about it, otherwise you'll be dead in 2 years. And so that was almost like an electric shock to me.
After that news, what did you start doing?
I started to modify my diet and just eating less and just moving more. Yeah, at that time, because I was in Saudi Arabia, there was no internet. It was in the early 90s. There was no internet, no gyms around in that place. Luckily, some of the nurses in the hospital had a Jane Fonda video, and it started from there.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I wish we had video of that.
I wish.
And you then lost weight through this period?
After 3 months, people started to notice that I was losing weight. But, it took me years to get from that point to what I look now.
Did this also influence your choice of career?
Yes, because I've been to a situation where I was overweight and very unhappy and living a difficult life. I wanted to share that experience of mine to help others who are in possibly a similar situation as me, who's probably struggling with weight, being not confident about themselves. So I became a personal trainer when I was 40 years old.
When people look at you doing your classes, 12 classes a week, and you say, hey, I'm 54, do they believe you?
No, they said, oh, get out of here. Show me your driver's license.
They do?
Yeah.
Natasha, does mindset impact how you age?
Yeah, I think it does. As we've heard from everyone today, like your positive activities and attitude really helps you age in a healthy way. But there was a study by Professor Becca Levy. She's a Yale professor of psychology, and she and her collaborators found in a longitudinal study that measured all sorts of aging markers and mental health and cognitive health, that those at the beginning of the study in their 50s that had more positive attitudes to ageing not only lived longer across those 25 years but enjoyed better functional health. If you have a more positive attitude towards ageing, then it's likely that you will actually live longer.
Right. And ageing doesn't discriminate.
No, it cuts across everything. We all age, regardless of our, gender, culture. And so it's interesting that we still haven't really addressed the ageist, culture and ageist attitudes. And perhaps that hasn't been given as much attention as other sort of prejudice and isms. So it's good that we're having this conversation.
Rudy, has growing older changed your outlook on life?
Yes, in a positive way. When I was younger, I thought people at my age were really old. They were so out of touch with pop culture. They didn't know anything about celebrity. They didn't know anything about the latest songs on the radio. But like now, I'm surprised I could beat someone in a trivia, like at 17-year-old in a trivia. And so I think I could outrun an 18-year-old as well. So for me, it changed for the better.
You feel like it's giving you more energy?
Yes, more energy and more positive outlook in life.
Krista and Charles?
I totally agree. I must point that out, that it is a lot of people who are over 50 that they don't want to mix with younger generations. We mix 95% with much, much younger people. And sometimes we both are surprised when we get invitation to a 21st birthday party and they wouldn't even want their parents there, and they're inviting us. I mean, we're in the 70s, 80s.
Louise, what excites you about getting older?
A lot of things excite me about getting older. It's a challenge. I'm totally stimulated to enjoy every second of being older. And I think once you get older, you really don't give a shit what anyone thinks about you. Off you pop. You think that about me? Bad luck. You can have a much greater sense of confidence and a greater ability to love yourself, appreciate yourself, and really not care what other people think. Just go and enjoy.
Faith, how about you?
I really do sincerely believe that, I'm getting better and better and better. In my 20s and 30s, there's just so much self-doubt. I don't feel like that. I feel like I've got so much to contribute. I'm really clear about where I'm going. The women that I admire most are the women in their 70s because their whole attitude of zero I find so appealing.
Thank you to you all. That is all we have time for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us too. Have a lovely evening.